The Vzorrian research team stood motionless, claws clasped together as they stared in awe at the strange scenes unfolding before them. When they had received the request from the newly arrived humans to study their colony on JX-448, the Vzorrians eagerly agreed. They knew little of humanity except wild tales of their unusually adaptable nature. Now, seeing it for themselves, they understood why humans had made such an impact on the galactic community in such a short time. JX-448 was a bizarre planet. Its gravity fluctuated wildly, making stable constructions nearly impossible. The very land itself rippled as gravitational waves washed across it. Plants and animals had adapted by becoming elastic, flowing with the distorted gravity. The Vzorrians had declared the planet uninhabitable when they first discovered it 200 cycles ago, and yet here was a thriving human colony. The lead researcher, Klix, focused his large black eyes on a nearby home. It was an ordinary plasteel storage container, the kind used to transport goods on cargo freighters. Yet humans had managed to turn it into a dwelling. As a gravity wave passed, the house lifted on one side, the occupants sliding along with it. Makeshift braces of woven metal mesh strained against the distortion, preventing the container from crashing over. The humans inside showed no concern, continuing their meal as the gravitational chaos played out around them. Klix's inner eyelids blinked sideways in confusion. How could they remain so casual, so unbothered by the radical forces churning outside their flimsy walls? It went beyond mere adaptation to the environment. The humans acted as if the laws of physics were a minor inconvenience rather than an immutable reality. A loud squawking sound tore Klix's attention away. A human child was playing with what appeared to be an empty food can, dangling it from a string as gravity waves tossed it wildly. The child shrieked in delight as the can spun and danced at the end of its string, which had been attached to one of the flexible support braces. Klix shook his head slowly, transfixed by the spectacle of a toy being plucked from refuse. On Vzorria, such behavior would be considered shameful, a sign of lacking resources and inventiveness. But humans evidently had no such taboos. They spotted opportunity in the mundane and carved joy from adversity. The research team followed a well-trodden path further into the settlement. All around them houses, walkways, tools, and furniture had been fashioned from salvaged parts and aged equipment. Here a corrugated shelter formed from an ancient dropship hull. There an entertainment center built into a discarded reactor casing, with exposed conduits serving as shelves. Everywhere Klix looked, he saw ingenuity stitching together the unlikely. And the humans incorporated the bizarre gravitational fluctuations into their constructions with startling ease. A children's playground consisted of anchored platforms and nets connected by elastic cords. As gravity waves billowed the nets, children jumped and bounced, propelled rapidly across ever-changing gaps. Their laughter and shouts mingled with the groans of overstressed metal. The humans had not simply adapted to survive here, they had found ways to thrive. The researchers crossed a footbridge made from crisscrossed cables. It swayed wildly even without a gravity wave, making the Vzorrians hesitate. Their sharp claws grasped the guard ropes uncertainly. Human engineering followed no sane principles Klix could discern. And yet the bridge held as they made their way across the churning ravine, planks secured by some arcane balance of tension and flexibility. They passed a crops field where plants grew in cascading elevated troughs. When gravity reversed, water and soil began to spill out, only to be caught in collector bins and pumped back to the top. It seemed profoundly laborious, and yet the humans didn't bother with alarms or automation. They simply walked out into the field wearing broad-brimmed hats, shovels over their shoulders, and manually reset the system while gossiping lightheartedly. Klix checked his data recorder, realizing nearly an hour had passed. He regretted not requesting a longer visit. There was so much more to see and hundreds of questions bursting from his brain sacs. How many orbital cycles had the colony existed? What motivated humans to endure such hardship and danger? Did they harbor long-term goals for this world, or was it simply a proving ground for their daring feats of engineering? As the Vzorrian delegation prepared to depart, a human engineer named Casey approached them. She was responsible for overseeing construction and safety across the settlement. Casey smiled warmly as she asked if they had any other questions. Klix shuffled his clawed feet awkwardly. He had thousands of questions, but not enough time to ask them. Finally, he simply gestured all around at the patchwork buildings and bending infrastructure and said, "But why? Why all this effort for such meager gains?" The human threw back her head and laughed brightly. "Because we can," she answered proudly. "The greatest challenge brings the greatest achievement. We didn't come here because it was easy or safe or comfortable. We came to see problems no one else could solve, and we resolved to solve them." She swept a hand across the landscape. "Yes, it's all scrap and spare parts, leftovers and waste, but necessity drives invention. And everything we build makes the next construction easier. We learn as we go." Casey's smile widened, her teeth bright against dusty skin. "We also like confounding expectations. Everyone said JX 448 couldn't be settled. Its storms and twisting gravity fields were too extreme, so naturally we had to try, and we'll expand as far as our ingenuity takes us. Daunting environments call to the human spirit." She leaned closer to the Vzorrians, mirth dancing in her eyes. "We may struggle and strain now, but someday this world and others like it will be thriving hubs of commerce and culture. We are laying the foundations today through grit and sweat and a little audacious crazy." Casey extended her hand. "So tell me, friends, do you still think our efforts are wasted?" Clicks slowly reached out and wrapped his slender claws around her hand. He made a small chuckling noise. "No, quite the contrary. I cannot wait to see what more humans will build here. Our engineering academies could learn much from your species. You find opportunity where others see only hardship. Please do invite us back. I want to see what ingenious solutions you devise next." The research team left with swirling thoughts and an expanded sense of possibility. The galaxy had always presented rigid challenges, worlds that would not yield no matter the resources poured against them. But perhaps with enough daring, enough resilience in the face of adversity, a way could be found. If humans could build entire cities from discarded rubbish and make playgrounds of gravitational chaos, what horizons might open for the Vzorrians? For the first time in many cycles, Clicks felt the stirrings of ambition. The humans were showing them a new way forward, if only his people had the courage to walk it with them.